But you just said something that now I'm curious about. You just said you also participate in the LGBTQ community. In what sense? You match them?
Yeah, we do. We take on clients who identify that way.
Sure. But specifically Indian clients.
Only Indian clients. I only work with South Asians.
Yeah. Okay. So it. See, now my brain's going in a bunch of different. Okay, so here's where my mind's at, right? I take it that you identify yourself as an Indian matchmaker because there's a lot of the nuances of being an Indian that you would have to know and be able to like take into account when you're matching people, right? Especially when you're considering the pressures from family.
Right.
How supportive are family members towards Indians who are part of the LGBTQ community who want to get married and find partnership?
It's evolving. It's definitely evolving. You know, you hear, I mean, I have some clients who are not out to their families and they're working with me to see if they can find somebody that identifies as Indian and is also, oriented the way they are, because they want to find that, and that'll give them that, maybe that strength to come out and strength to be like, well, at least he gets our family dynamic and he speaks the same language. Like maybe that'll ease it or bring that compatibility to the forefront. But then on the other hand, I've got, my own friends and family who are out and proud. You see the family dynamic shifting because it's a firsthand experience. I think the Indians are not any different than any other community when it comes to like, if you have somebody in your family that is any type of way, right? Like doctor, lawyer, engineer, gay, straight, or whatever, you're going to understand it better because you're seeing it and you love that person who is now bringing this into your life. It's an evolution, and the whole world is evolving on this topic, not just Indians.
And I agree with you, but the reason why I'm particularly curious about what that dynamic is like in the Indian community is because from my understanding, when an Indian is marrying another Indian, you're talking about blending large families together, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you're having weddings, it's like a mosh pit, right? So if you're part of the LGBTQ community, I would imagine that it's a lot easier to bond with your partner more privately, right? As well as like you have a close-knit group of people who support you, and you have your wedding and so on and so forth. And you might have a big wedding depending on how supportive your group is. But like if you're talking about the Indian community who are ultimately very traditional, right? And I imagine there's a lot of traditional gender roles that are associated with it, right? Yeah. So if you have 1,000 people come to a wedding, I'm going to imagine not all 1,000 people are progressive, right?
Not at all. Yeah.
Right. So is an LGBTQ person going to be able to have a similar experience in their courtship and marriage when they are not in a community that might support them the way that they want to be supported?
Maybe, maybe not. And why I say that is because it's not just that. So there's a big taboo, or we're working against it, but like marrying outside of the culture, right? Why are we even talking about Indian matchmaking? Is because they want you to marry another Indian person. So there's so many people that don't date Indian. They're still, identify as straight, but they date different cultures. I myself dated non-Indians before I got married. But why? How you're going to approach that with your family is still very similar. They don't know. I never introduced my parents to any of my boyfriends before marriage, right? So the traditional element is traditional across the board. Yeah. And if you are in a family that's going to support you as an individual and what you're looking for and who you find on your own or through a matchmaker, I'm hoping that at least your immediate family is more progressive and supportive. And then when you are branching out to celebrating that through a wedding ceremony, you're only going to invite the people that appreciate and celebrate you and your story. You're not going to invite the haters. So you might not have 1,000-person wedding, but you're going to have 150 people who love you and celebrate you and that relationship.
So what do you think is harder? Someone that's part of the LGBTQ community presenting their partner to their parents, like their Indian LGBTQ partner or counterpart, or someone who is straight but presenting someone that's outside the Indian culture?
It probably is going to be the former, just because, then the idea like, okay, fine, we'll get over, we understood that you're looking for a same-sex partner, whatever, you're going to get married, great. But then that concept of children, because children is still such a big part of our community. Again, traditional culture, it's marriage is for children, right? That not marriage isn't for fun. It's to have kids and procreate and move on. And so I think it's harder to explain that, yes, I'm doing this and my path towards being a mother or a father is going to look different. It's going to be more challenging. So I think that it's harder to kind of broach that gap, because at the end of the day, a man and a woman is still considered quote unquote traditional.
Right. But you saying the latter one is the one that they're going to accept more? That's the one that's easier?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I knew so many people that there's drama and fighting and tears and all that, but that ended up at the end of the day marrying a non-Indian person. But I didn't hear about the first kind of same sex. And personally, I don't know of anybody myself, but I see it now. It's celebrated so well in media. But I would say in the last 10 years is when I first started seeing it go mainstream. So that's a huge arc, right? Whereas 30 years ago, we were married. My husband has an uncle, a granduncle, in the 50s who married a Caucasian woman. So that was much more accepted. And I think also maybe a part of colonization and all that, we saw mixed marriages happening back in the motherland and all. So that's a little bit more normalized, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm imagining when you're talking about the aunties, like, you know what I'm saying? You bring in a same-sex partner and you're like, yeah, we're going to have a baby through surrogacy and through lab work. And she's going to pass out and have a, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to imagine their reaction. And that's.
Which I will credit, just to kind of like bring all of this to a close, is that when you've got people who are marrying later, in their mid 30s, late 40s, talking about having families, already those concept of fertility, surrogacy, that's already being introduced in that uncle and auntie generation. So they're a little bit more familiar. And you add on maybe another layer of, now we're the same sex couple, but you've already become familiar with the concepts of surrogacy and IVF and this and that. So at that point, it's a little bit less of a barrier to approach.